Hello, I'm Fran Burwell. Welcome, everybody. This is Central Europe Week here at the Atlantic Council, which is an opportunity to discuss how the US and Central Europe can work together in shaping transatlantic responses to global challenges. The focus this year is on bolstering transatlantic resilience. And in this session, we're going to examine digitalization in Central Europe and how it contributes to that goal, both in individual countries, through the European Union, and through regional initiatives such as the 3Cs initiative. I am asked to let you know that as we proceed through our discussion, you are welcome to ask questions. There should be a question box on your screen. Please type in your question and we will get it. And if you are watching on YouTube or Twitter, you can also comment on this and you can, and we will pick up that comment as a question. I'm delighted to be joined here today by two excellent leaders and policymakers from the region. First, we have Minister Boris Andrijanič, Minister for Digital Transformation of Slovenia. I think it's important to note that Slovenia, of course, holds the EU presidency right now. He began his career establishing a number of NGOs in Slovenia aimed at promoting citizenship and entrepreneurship. He has also worked in think tanks, and I think most importantly for this, has real life experience in the tech world, having worked for Uber, most recently as head of public policy for Central and Eastern Europe. As of April, he chairs the Strategic Council for Digitalization of Slovenia, and also, of course, is in this the role of chairing digitalization efforts through the Council of the European Union. We're also joined by Petr Očko, Deputy Minister for New Technologies at the Ministry of Industry and Trade of the Czech Republic. As most listeners will be aware, we will have the French following the Slovenians in the EU presidency, and then we have the Czech Republic. So as of July next year, Minister Očko will be the successor to Minister Andrijanič. Minister Očko, following graduation, started a small company that today would be considered a successful technology startup. He went on to work for the Czech Ministry of Finance, both on securing European funds, a very important function, and also fostering R&D support at the Ministry of Industry and Technology. As of March 2016, he was appointed head of the Czech Republic's technology agency. Let me start with Minister Andrijanič and ask you, you are holding a variety of meetings during the Slovenian presidency, and I know there is one of Central European ministers on November 30th, and then another one in December of, I believe, all 27. Can you talk a little bit about your priorities for those meetings, and also what you see as the priorities of the Slovenian presidency in digitalization, and how, as you come closer to the end, these have been achieved?
Thanks so much for this kind introduction. It's a pleasure to be with all of you tonight. I must say that we have a number of extremely exciting as well as challenging digital files on our table at the moment. And I'm looking forward to this first meeting of digitalization ministers of Central and Eastern Europe, which will take place at the end of this month here in Slovenia. We're very excited to have everyone in one room, although it might be a virtual room because of the COVID situation, basically to do two things. First of all, to exchange best practices in the area of digital transformation of healthcare, education, public services, and the economy. We've had incredible success stories all across this great region, and now for the first time, we'll be able to learn from each other directly, which I think is a big thing. The second thing will be a discussion about the European digital files that we are discussing right now at the EU level. As I said, there are a great many of them, and I'm delighted to say that we're hoping to achieve a general approach, at least when it comes to Digital Services Act and Digital Markets Act, at the end of this month and in the beginning of next month. So there's a lot going on. I would also say that we have already achieved a general approach when it comes to the Data Governance Act. I think this is an incredibly important piece of legislation that will basically facilitate data sharing and hence, I would say, re-energize Europe's digital economy. We've also achieved quite significant progress when it comes to AI Act, where we hope to have the first compromise version as well as the progress report adopted in December. So it's been a crazy and busy couple of months, but so far I can say so good.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Let me turn now to Minister Očko and ask whether we know we have the French gap and we don't know what's going to be happening vis-a-vis the DMA, the Digital Markets Act and the Digital Services Act. They could possibly be resolved by the time you take up the EU presidency, but perhaps not. What do you see as the Czech priorities as you plan for the presidency in digitalization? And also, what role do you think that the Central European countries can or should play in EU policymaking on these issues? Thank you.
Yeah, greetings from Prague, and thank you very much for inviting me to this wonderful event that definitely touches very important topics, especially in this moment. So for us, actually dealing with digital agenda is also very important. We are watching apparently very successful Slovenian presidency in this area. As Mark mentioned, actually Slovenian presidency is actually going to reach a general approach in three very important files that were just mentioned: Data Governance Act, Digital Services Act, and Digital Markets Act. So it helps us to actually to focus also on other areas. But we will, as you said, actually there's France in between. Of course, we will see what will be the final discussions, what will be the discussions with the Parliament. So definitely it might happen that in these three files there might be some work to do also for us. But we very much believe that DSA and DMA both will be, for both the general approach will be approved at the Telecommunication Council in the beginning of December, which I hope to attend. And Czech position, I think we see a compromise there, and we think that the Czech position will be positive on this. But there's a lot of other files on the table, and definitely digitalization is one of the highest priorities for the Czech Republic for our presidency. And Mark already mentioned AI Act. AI Act is a really huge piece of legislation. This is really very horizontal, very robust. And there's a lot of work ahead of us. Even though we see a lot of work being done by Slovenian presidency, there will be definitely difficult discussions during whole the next year. So this is definitely one of the files we would like to move or advance. But there is a question of what will French presidency actually achieve in this. We can debate it later. And also, actually, the Commission should publish the Data Act. That is also very important legislation. And we are very much curious what will be the final shape of the Commission's proposal. And definitely this will be also very important file for us. There are a few other files that are very important for us, but I will not name all of them. But definitely digitalization is very, very important topic for us, for our presidency in the second half of the next year.
Thank you.
And the scenario, I forgot to answer the scenario part of the question. Definitely would be happy to actually, what is actually doing the Slovenian presidency actually to organize to continue in getting the Central European countries more together, because most of them actually are really like digital challengers and have big digital ambitions. So I think we can actually offer or propose to Europe a lot of solutions and ideas that can be actually utilized in the whole EU. I think that definitely Central Europe is not anymore it's not, it was actually not even before the developing part of Europe. Actually, I think we are very confident countries, self-confident countries that can contribute to the development of the EU in digital agenda.
So thank you very much. And Mr. Andrijanič, back to you. I wanted to pick up on that last point about how Central Europe offers a lot of lessons and opportunities to the rest of the Union in this area. And I wonder if you could speak a little bit about the lessons you have learned in leading Slovenia's digital transformation. And as you look forward to the next challenges that you face, what are they? I mean, I know that each Central European country is different. They bring different resources. They start with at different levels and with different problems and challenges. But what are the lessons that you have learned as far as advancing your own country's digitalization? Oh, you're on mute.
Thanks so much. I think that's a great question. I would just like to follow up on what Petr just said. I always call Central Europe the Asia of Europe. If you look at our growth rates throughout the past 30 years, if you look at how pro-innovation our businesses and our people have been throughout this period of immense reforms, you can see a stark contrast to the rest of the EU. And I'm actually proud of this incredible economic dynamism and of this economic miracle. Tens of millions of people were pulled out of poverty in the past 30 years in CE. And that's, I think, one of the biggest stories of success in Europe's history, or at least in recent history. And this is something we should all be proud of. But at the same time, we should also maintain this entrepreneurial spirit, this pro-innovation approach when it comes to all things new and digital. We should remain as open as possible when it comes to regulation and the government mindset. And as I mentioned in the beginning, there's so much we can learn from each other. So for example, when I'm trying to introduce some pro-business and pro-tech measures in Slovenia, I look at places like Czech Republic or Slovakia. When I'm looking at forward-looking and digitized public administration, I look at Estonia. So there's a great deal we can learn from each other if we work together. So for me, I think the biggest challenge is to make sure that we start implementing very many measures in different fields that will lead us to become one of top 5 most digitally advanced countries by the end of this decade. So we were delighted by the news that came out on Friday, which was the news about the new index of digital economy and society, which put Slovenia for the first time in our history above the EU's average when it comes to digitization. We're now ranked at place 13, which is obviously a huge improvement, but still we're not nearly there. So we'll be climbing up by adopting a wide range of reforms and making sure that we are one of the most pro-business and pro-innovation countries in Europe.
Could I follow up and just ask, there is sometimes a debate about whether you have innovation on one end of the spectrum and regulation on the other end of the spectrum, and that the more regulation you have, the less innovation you have. Is that something that you adhere to? Many times in Europe when I'm discussing this issue, it's more like there can be innovation within regulation, or the regulation may even stimulate innovation. How do you see that with your experience in moving Slovenia up the DESI ladder, if you will?
Yeah, that's another excellent question. So I think we need more regulation, but it needs to be smart regulation. I think we all agree that, digital services must operate in a regulated environment. This is such an important part of our economy that it simply needs rules that are clear and that are common sense. Now, let me give you one great example how smart regulation can actually foster innovation. Estonia was one of the first countries in the world to adopt forward-looking ride-sharing regulation. As a result, companies like Uber were able to enter the market. But at the same time, Estonians themselves were able to develop business models like the one at Uber, which means that today, the biggest challenger to Uber in Europe, Africa, and much of the rest of the world is coming from Estonia. It's a company named Bolt. So if we adopt forward-looking regulation, it won't just benefit our consumers right away. It will also foster innovation through entrepreneurship. And this is something that I think we need to bear in mind. And when it comes to ride-sharing regulation and so many other areas of regulation, CEE has been the champion in Europe. We've been the ones making the most decisive steps in the right direction. And then the rest of Europe followed. And I think we should keep this momentum and remain the most pro-change, pro-innovation, pro-reform area on the continent.
So thank you for that. Let's go back to Minister Očko, because I'd like him to respond to the same question, but also to speak a bit about what are the challenges that you have found in the Czech Republic? What are the lessons that you have drawn? How you are running the technology agency as well. How do you reconcile? How do you figure out what is worth supporting and what's not worth supporting?
Yeah. Thanks for the question. Coming back to your original question of regulation versus innovation. Actually, as Mark said, actually, there doesn't have to be contradiction if we speak about smart regulation. On the other hand, actually, in Europe, we sometimes have a tendency to a little bit over-regulate, and the smart regulation is not always what is produced here. So actually, if I would be concrete, actually, we are a little bit scared about the AI Act, because actually, if you see the 100 pages of the proposal, actually, you really feel it's heavy. It's really physically heavy, I would say. So the first feeling is not that this is actually dynamic, smart, flexible, future-proof regulation. But on the other hand, I don't say we don't need it. We need regulation in this key area. But we think that we need some work in make it less heavy, and especially to allow for more innovation in the area of SMEs. And also to allow for actually faster deployment of the new applications to the market, because if I see all the compliance measures, actually to some extent they are important, but we should speak what does it mean in terms how innovative solutions can get to the market in the EU and in the other markets. So this is very important, and this is always a point that the Czech Republic raises, that we should actually reduce unnecessary bureaucracy. And to the second part of your question. Definitely, you rightly said that for many years I'm actually involved in the support of applied research, industrial research here in the Czech Republic. Actually, we do a lot of things. I think Czech Republic belongs to the countries. I'm not sure how it's with Slovenia, but to the countries of Central and Eastern Europe that they give a highest portion of GDP to research. It's about 2%. That is also higher than some of the Western countries, of course. And we try to actually wisely define priorities. Where we invest this financial means. Actually, I'm happy to have also under my competence so-called smart specialization strategy. That is a strategy that most of the European countries have, but actually we really upgraded this smart specialization strategy in the last 2 years. And the most important thing I would stress is that we really we really invested into analysis and evidence of what is really needed in the area of actually Czech industry, Czech research organizations, what are the trends. So the strategy is really evidence-based. And I think it's really well designed now. And I'm saying that because actually we see sometimes that evidence-based policy is, of course, in our countries, but also on the EU level, not the case. Actually, for the AI Act, I could imagine much more robust impact assessments, for example. Mm-hmm. So this is something I think is very important for actually responsible policy in the area of innovation, digital, but of course also in the other areas.
So let me remind our audience, we have just a few minutes left, but please do send your questions either through the question button where on the screen where you're watching, or by commenting on YouTube and Twitter. We look forward to hearing those. But let me go back again to Minister Andrijanič. So we have a collection of countries in Central Europe who are all rather different. We have representatives here of, I would say, 2 of the smaller countries. But how important is it for the countries of Central Europe to work together? You mentioned learning from each other, but I'm thinking more of cooperation through entities, either the type of discussion that you're talking about in late November, where you're convening the ministers, or through initiatives such as the 3 Cs initiative or other regional initiatives. How important is that, both to achieving what you want to achieve domestically, so in other words, fostering your digitalization plans domestically, as well as having a voice on the European stage?
I think it's incredibly important, but let me first add a word or two to what Petr just said. I think every piece of regulation should be judged through the lens of SMEs. Small and medium-sized enterprises form the backbone of Europe's economy. And unlike big tech companies, they cannot afford to hire a legion of lawyers to be compliant. So in this respect, as Petr correctly observed, sometimes less is more when it comes to regulation. Now, when it comes to regional cooperation, I think obviously there's a lot more than we can do than just learn from each other. We share a lot of things. We share a common culture. We share a common past. We are still underdeveloped compared to Western Europe. So we need to make sure that we bridge this economic and social, as well as digital divide to a certain extent, as soon as possible. And that's why I think initiatives like the 3 Cs initiative is so important, because it really allows us to start catching up in the areas that are absolutely crucial, be it infrastructure, be it digital transformation, or in the end, security. Now, obviously, I need to highlight that our countries are also very different from each other. So it's difficult to look at us as one unified block, but we do have a lot of things in common. And in my opinion, we should be strengthening our cooperation on very many fronts.
So let me ask Minister Očko basically the same question. As you think about your leadership in the EU presidency, how are you thinking about continuing the type of initiative that Minister Andrijanič is starting as far as 3 Cs initiative is concerned?
Yeah, yes, definitely. I just can only agree with what Mark already said. And definitely, I already mentioned my initial speech that definitely we will be very happy to continue in this initiatives. Definitely, we see a big sense in this. Actually, one of the ideas is that actually we definitely organize a big high-level digital conference, presidency conference in the beginning of November. So one part or one of the events under the heading of this high-level conference, where already Mrs. von der Leyen promised to come, for example, could be dedicated to this cooperation. So we have a few ideas definitely, and we will definitely support this cooperation. We have a lot of good cooperations with the Central European countries, especially of course with the neighboring countries where it's usually easy, like Poland and Slovakia. But also we especially in the research side, also very much involved in the research. There's a lot of cooperations with other countries. I know that there's some projects, for example, in artificial intelligence, where we have common projects also with Slovenian institutions and many others. So definitely we will invest to this. For the Free Seas, you know, the Czech Republic actually, was originally quite hesitant for Free Seas. You can see number of projects that were proposed. I will not hide it. That we are the country with probably the smallest number of projects proposed, and probably and there is no digital project at this moment. But I think the attitude has changed. Actually, originally we were a little bit scared that actually being part of this initiative will actually create a new barrier between new member states and old member states. But this is definitely not the idea of the Free Seas. But we have to talk about that carefully, because definitely we want to be an integral part of the EU. I'm not happy if someone says that Czech Republic is a new member state. Actually, we are a member state. So
Yes.
So that was the talk from the beginning for but now the attitude is changing. Yeah.
So let me ask, we have just a couple minutes left, and let me ask a transatlantic question. So we have not talked about a lot of issues that are on the table, from cooperation over cybersecurity, semiconductors and tech supply chains, AI standards. If you could pick one area where your country could be part of a conversation with the United States about advancing transatlantic goals in that area, what would it be? And I'm going to restrict you each to a minute. Minister Andrijanič.
It would be two things. First of all, AI. We have a proud tradition of AI development since the 70s. We host UNESCO's first AI center in the world, and we're also establishing the largest international center for applied AI. The second thing would be semiconductors. We have a lot of knowledge in the area of semiconductor research, and this is definitely a fertile ground for a R&D cluster that would be one of 4 or 5 big clusters in Europe.
Great. Minister Očko.
Yeah, I will also mention two things. One is artificial intelligence, where also as in Slovenia and Czech is really big mass of AI research and a lot of companies, including startups. And the second area, cybersecurity, especially 5G cybersecurity. Like there's a lot of things happening here. The Prague 5G cybersecurity conference. So these two things, I think, we can definitely contribute, and we very much support transatlantic relation, not only in these two areas, of course.
Of course. So thank you so much to both of you. And thank you so much to the audience. We look forward to hearing how Slovenia and the Czech Republic move forward with their own digitalization plans, but also as leaders in Central Europe and in the European Union and the transatlantic partnership. So thank you both so much for today's discussion.
Thank you.
I enjoyed it.